Thank you for taking the time to view this video response. It is a response to the documentary put out in 2007 by First Run Features entitled "For the Bible Tells Me So." It is a documentary that is obviously pro-homosexual, and this documentary has gone to great lengths to bring forth many experts in the field of biblical study in an attempt to prove that homosexual conduct is in harmony with Bible teaching. In other words, that you can be a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ and at the same time be practicing homosexuality. The purpose of this response, at least this first part, is to begin to demonstrate to you that that simply is not the case. That the claims made by these individuals on that video and on that documentary cannot hold up under scrutiny of what the Scriptures teach and what the Scriptures reveal about sexuality, about sexual morality and sexual immorality. I'm contending that the Bible condemns homosexual conduct. And at this time I'm not addressing the idea of orientation, the idea of desire, or the idea of attraction. I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm talking about someone practicing a particular type of sexual conduct and whether or not that conduct is in harmony with Bible teaching. As we think about this, let's understand, and let's begin by setting forth what the real issue is here. Then we'll look at a few things about what the issue is not, so that we don't go, running down the wrong road and start talking about things that really don't bear on this issue. This issue is quite simple. Does the Bible endorse? That is, does it support? Does it sanction? Does it approve of homosexual conduct? The documentary would say yes, it does. That is their whole purpose in having that documentary. They may try to hedge that, but that's still the case. That is their purpose. That conduct, that sexual conduct, is moral, is right. That the Bible would endorse and would label that as being moral. I'm saying that that is simply not the case. Not the case at all. And again, let me say, I'm not addressing the idea of attraction, the idea of orientation, the idea of desire. We may have a desire and attraction toward and for a lot of different things, but that in and of itself does not mean we have the right to fulfill that desire or to meet that attraction. Now, surely anyone who believes the Bible understands that. What is the issue not? Let's think about what the issue is not. We've already seen what it is. What does the Bible teach? But what is the issue not? This issue is not a question of God's love. God loves everyone. When people come along and say, well, God loves homosexuals, well, of course He does. That's not an issue here. I have no argument with that. The fact is, God loves everyone. The question is, does He love all conduct that people might be involved in? I mean, we love our children, we love our grandchildren, we even love our neighbors, the Bible teaches, but that doesn't mean that we endorse what they're doing, does it? Whether or not God loves someone is not the sole criteria as to whether or not He looks at certain conduct and says, that's wrong. That will cost you your soul. Well, we all understand that, I'm sure. So the issue is not the love of God or the grace and mercy of God. God can love the sinner and condemn the conduct. Now, there's simply no question about that. None whatsoever from a biblical standpoint. God loves all people. He loves the murderer, He loves the rapist, the bank robber, the pedophile. You name it, He loves them. But He doesn't endorse their conduct. I know that, and I'm sure you know that as well. This also is not about hate or animosity towards somebody. I don't hate the individuals in this documentary. Men like Dr. Lawrence C. Keene of the Disciples of Christ. or Dr. Peter Gomez of Harvard Divinity, or Dr. Mel White of Soul Force, or Jimmy Creech of Faith in America, and a host of others in this documentary. I've never met them. I have nothing against them personally. This is not about personalities. Again, this is about what does the Bible teach. That's the issue. So I think all of us realize that we can set forth in a very passionate way what we believe and state what we believe with great conviction without that being equated to hating somebody or having animosity toward someone. So we can disagree. And someone's wrong on this issue. There's no question about that. But there's no need for hate. So when someone says, well, people are assaulting and murdering homosexuals and calling them names and so forth, I have no defense for that. The Bible does not condone that conduct. Does God love the people that are doing that? Of course He does. But He doesn't condone the conduct, does He? Yet He still loves them. The people who call names and would hurt people. But do you realize the very beginning of this video, you have someone throwing a pie in the face of Anita Bryant simply because she's expressing what she believes? You talk about hypocrisy. And my friends, quite frankly, that is par for the course for a lot of these individuals. They talk about love and understanding and humility and grace and all these wonderful fruits of the Spirit. But some of them are the most vicious, vile, vindictive, hateful people in this world when you say you don't agree with their position and you don't agree with their conduct and that the Bible teaches against that. That's hypocrisy. But it's not about hate. It's not about assault or murder. It's also not about what someone who claims to be a Christian says or does. I mean, this documentary has people like Jerry Falwell, Jimmy Swaggart, and some others who they put there as poster children for certain views of Christianity. I have no obligation to defend Jimmy Swaggart, Jerry Falwell, or anybody else who appears in that documentary. In fact, I don't agree with those men on a lot of different things, especially something as simple as the question of what must I do to be saved. Those men reject the Lord's plan of salvation, so I don't agree with them on that and a host of other things. But what I'm telling you is I don't have an obligation to defend them or to answer for what they say or do. Now, all of us agree with that principle. Even if somebody's an atheist, they're not going to say they have an obligation to speak for or to defend everybody who comes along and speaks in the name of atheism. And again, I'm sure you see that point quite clearly. So the issue is, what does the Bible teach? It's not these other things. But how will this issue be decided? How will we decide whether or not the Bible endorses that or condemns it? That is homosexual conduct. Well, let me say first of all that this whole issue will not be decided by emotion. Emotion has nothing whatever to do with what the Bible teaches. This documentary is full of emotion, and they have music playing at the right time as well, with scenes of people hugging and crying and weeping and just being with each other. And again, whether it's Jake Rattan and his parents at the front of Focus on the Family, whether it's Mary Lou Wallner, whose daughter took her own life in a tragic way, no matter what it is in that documentary, understand that those emotions that those people have are totally irrelevant in regard to what the Bible teaches. I'm sure that they are sincere and genuine. I have no desire and no basis upon which to question their authenticity and their genuineness. But understand, that does not decide what the Bible teaches. Surely you understand that. If you don't, just take that to its ultimate conclusion. You'll see how foolish it is to base what you believe in regard to what the Bible teaches on emotion. Also, let me say that this will not be decided by the majority. It doesn't make any difference what percentage of what people believe what about the Bible. That's irrelevant. That has nothing whatever to do with this issue. This is not a matter of counting noses. And I'm sure Dr. Gomez and Dr. Keene and Dr. White and all those other men and women on that documentary understand and would agree with each one of these points that I am sharing with you right now. That majority is not how this will be decided. Not by a long shot. Also, will not be decided by where somebody went to school or what degree or degrees they have after their name. That has no bearing on truth. Think of the implications of taking the position that if so-and-so went to a certain school and they received a certain degree from that school, then what they say must be true. There's no one who is willing to accept that as a basis for the question of what does the Bible teach about homosexual conduct. No one is willing to do that, I assure you. In fact, when you look at this documentary, you see a number of condescending remarks made by some of these men, like Dr. Lawrence C. Keene of the Disciples of Christ when he said this, and I quote, "There's nothing wrong with a fifth grade understanding of God as long as you're in the fifth grade," end quote. I find that very condescending. I think it's an attempt on his part, and people like him. This is what I think now. I don't know his heart. But I think it's an attempt on his part to try to intimidate. Well, how dare you question me? I'm doctor. I went in such and such a school to such and such a seminary. So, that's irrelevant. Or this statement by Dr. Peter Gomez of Harvard Divinity, when he said, and I quote, "You have to think when you read the Bible, which is why before the Reformation, perhaps the Roman Catholics are right in saying ordinary people shouldn't be reading the Bible because they usually get it wrong. And I'm convinced that usually we do." End quote. Ordinary people? I guess if you're just some hick from some state somewhere and you didn't go to some seminary, then you can't think properly and reason correctly and look at the Bible. Of course, you realize that simply is not the case. Those things have nothing whatever to do with what the Bible teaches. Here is how this will be decided. It'll be decided on the evidence, the biblical evidence. That's how it will be decided. That's how all matters of truth are decided. You must gather the evidence. You must handle that evidence in a right way, in a correct way, in a proper way. And you must draw only those conclusions that are based on and warranted by that evidence. Period. Our whole judicial system operates that way. We operate that way every day. We don't just believe something because somebody says it. We say, listen, can you give me the evidence, the basis for why you're saying what you're saying, so I can look at it and test it and put it to the test? That's how this will be decided, my friends. That's exactly how this will be decided. You know, there have been a number of different passages brought forth in that documentary, like Genesis chapter 19 and the account of Sodom and Gomorrah. And you go into the Levitical passages, and you come into the New Testament with Romans chapter 1, verses 24 through 28 and so forth. But I'm not going to get bogged down in those passages because it takes, I think, more time than people are willing to put into it to investigate this. What I'm going to do is examine a statement that I think really is indicative of this entire documentary. A statement made by Dr. Lawrence C. Keene of the Disciples of Christ. We're going to quote that statement, then we're going to test that statement in light of what the Bible teaches about sexual morality and sexual immorality. And you'll be able to see just how that statement is going to fare in light of what the Bible teaches. We will share that statement with you by Dr. Keene in the next segment and begin putting that statement to the test. Thanks for listening. Tune in to part number 2 as we continue our expose of this documentary entitled "For the Bible Tells Me So."